Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Reed. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. But we're rejoined by the biggest name, you could say, in DC right now. Your opinions just captivate everybody. Mr. Rick Doc Walker, one of the original Hogs. How are you doing on this fantastic Friday evening, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just honored to be on the show. And, it's that period of time now for about 4 weeks where we got out an OTA, and all I care about in OTAs is that there's no casualties.
Yep.
Because it's not football. Football is played in full pads, and there's always got to be the threat of contact, or it's not football,
right,
to me. And so now, and I know the league and regulations, and I respect all of that. But that's the disconnect. You get these young guys that come in, and yet it's important for the cerebral part. This is a very intelligent group of young people they have, because they had clean practices. And you go, well, what do you do all day? Well, you try to find out how much can the guys retain. And I look at high IQ players. High IQ players win.
Yeah.
And I give them a thumbs up because they have high IQ players. It's also important to see the new additions, how they fit. And there's only 3 factors that I ever believe in: O-line, D-line, quarterback. And if you don't have O-line, D-line, quarterback, everything else is optional. But without that,
right,
those 3 factors, you have no chance to win. Not big. And so Carson fits that role. He's got the potential to do that. It's also, in my opinion, his last shot at being QB1.
Yeah.
And so I like that pressure on him. What he's got to do is acclimate himself to the team, which he's doing a hell of a job of. Then the rest of it is going to be, now we find out about what Coach Turner has in his arsenal. Because he's really been playing and coaching with one hand behind his back.
Right.
Because when you can't carry out what you got to carry out, it's impossible to get results. And so now you got a guy, there's no excuses. Whether or not we get Curtis playing, I'm a Sims guy. I'm upfront about it. Your number 1 pick is legit. That's important.
Yep.
I love the big back 8. So I've got the pieces I'm looking forward to. And that is, he reminds me of Big Country. And so when you got a guy in there, I need a sledgehammer. All that other optional stuff about cuteness and quickness and all that, that's optional. I got to have a sledgehammer. We got sledgehammer potentially now.
Right.
And so now it's O-line, D-line, quarterback. Those are the 3 checkpoints. And then the linebackers and all that Buffalo, all that other stuff is optional. Without O-line, D-line, and quarterback, you got no shot. So now we at least are in contention to be legit. And it's all about Jacksonville for me. And so when they get a padded practice on, then I'll get excited.
And Coach, I wanted to ask you, because you brought up the contact aspect of this, and Rivera and the Commanders were fined $100,000 for excessive contract due to the CBA agreement. What did you think of? What was your reaction to that?
Well, I've been saying this for years, is that if you're going to be mediocre and not get fined for trying to be better, then I'm mad at you.
Right.
But, you got, now, it's not intentional. You don't want to, it's a part of being, the game is part borderline insanity. But you got to get right up to that point. Who does that every year? Steelers, Seahawks, Patriots, Ravens. They get fined every year, and Eagles. That's what I'm looking for. Show me that you are borderline. Now, you got to control it. And Rivera was right, to reprimand, but it was more reaction than reality because it wasn't intentional. But you got to make sure you get your people through it. They got them through it. No injuries. And that's the important thing. The next thing is that, and the only time I'll ever watch them again is when they're in full pads. The game is played, high contact. When the quarterback's got a red jersey, I don't buy none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got to be live for it to count for me. Then we'll start figuring out when the defense, most of these practices are orchestrated. See, that's why I like scrimmages. Yeah. Unfortunately, we won't scrimmage an opponent. I thought Buffalo was going to work. That didn't work. I'm angry over that because to me, to really find out who you are before the opener, you got to put live bullets. Everything can't be fake and orchestrated and protected. So I have no control over that.
Right.
But I like the kids. I like the group. I feel good about what I've seen. And so we'll have to see.
Right. And you touched on it a little bit, but speaking of who we are, who do you think this offense is, or who do you think they should be? I mean, they have so much talent at wide receiver. Of course, it's a lot of ifs with Curtis Samuel. I mean, Johannsen, so far, everything looks good. Terry with the contract. But if all those guys are there, that's a very good wide receiver core. They got a good quarterback. We're hoping that he pans out. And they got a fantastic trio of running backs. What do you think this offense's identity is going to be?
Well, I mean, again, I'm the worst guy to say for that because to me, it's all ground and pound. We got to control the line of scrimmage. Yeah. Then everything opens up. Our 3 receiver combination sets are going to be outstanding. Where we are from the tight end position, Logan, you got to let Logan heal. I like where they are now. I think that they've got good young talent at that position. I like Bates a lot. And I think the kids behind him, I've seen they got athleticism. They got length. So all the boxes are checked right now, but I can't judge it until I see them in pads.
Right.
And the defense doesn't have to be restrictive.
Right.
You can't play this game knowing you're not going to get hit. Yeah. It's bull crap. Okay. You got to let the game is played. That's why I always reference it as tackle football. It's not shorts and shells, not walkthroughs, not practicing in bubbles. The game is played outdoors. The hell with the climate or the reality of the weather. You play through all of that. Right. And that's what it's got to be. And so that's what I'm hopeful for. I'm not a fan of camp in Asheville or Ashburn, but that's what they're going to do. So we'll see what happens. I just think that being isolated is how you bond. Championship teams have an innate love and affection for each other that's unparalleled. You got to be willing to die for your teammate. You got to be willing to take the bullet. Well, how do you know that? And if you're not putting that extreme pressure, we saw what happened with Jammin last year. The kid's an excellent outside linebacker. They decided to move him in. Well, okay, that failed. But the kid runs like the wind. Find a way to get him so you can utilize what he does best. It's not his fault. Yeah. You tried something that, hey, I give you credit. You took a shot at it. Didn't work. So find a way. You can't waste your number 1 pick. We vomited over our second round picks for the last decade. Okay. They've been offers. That's why I'm a 5th and 6th round guy. We do well there.
Yeah.
Bouvier just got new money.
Right.
Oh, we're hell on wheels. Yeah. Oh, from 5th to 7th. Yeah, we might be among the best in the league.
Right.
So give me a Cameron Curl. I want undrafted free agents. I want guys that are hungry. They want to come out. All this bonus crap and guys doing commercials and getting new cars. They've done nothing until we get in the playoffs. Right. That's when you start earning your keep. And I'm hopeful that we're moving back in that direction.
Yeah, and Terry Mclaurins obviously has not been at OTAs and minicamp due to his contract negotiations. I'm not going to ask you about him not showing up, but do you think that him not being there is a big detriment to the relationship, the chemistry between him and Carson Wentz? That gets brought up a lot in the local media. Do you think that has any input?
None, because he's a consummate pro. And when you get guys who love the game, he's got to help his family right now. He's grossly underpaid based for his production. That's what the front office has got to work out. That's their thing. See, I think everybody has a role. Front office, head coach, management, ownership. Everybody's got to be on the same page. The market just blew up. Now, you'd had to have foresight. The great programs see things before they happen. We're reactionary. Things happen, then we react to it. That's why we got a Hall of Fame tackle that's playing for the Niners and a quarterback who we've not had anybody better since 8 left. Kirk Cousins is the best guy we've had since he left. So failure. You don't give away those type of assets and not get this equal talent in return. Okay, so let's move forward.
Right.
So now at $28 million, if QB1 performs, he's a steal. He's a steal because you cannot win in this league without a guy that makes plays and that threatens secondaries. That 8-man in the box, that's a dead man walking now because we'll beat you over the top.
Right.
You know, Terry Mclaurins, he had to be an acrobat to catch the passes that coming his way. I mean, you know, what the hell will he be like when he can run through balls?
I
It'll
know.
be frightening how dangerous he could be.
Right.
But if he don't get it worked out, next man up. I don't count anybody that's not there.
Right.
You know, and so the kid out of Penn State, winner. Okay. If Curtis can stay healthy, he's proven to be a threat, but he got to prove availability. I need you to play in the games. If you don't play in games, I don't count you.
Right.
You know, I like Sims. I love Sims, but they don't throw the ball. Right. So got to wait and see what happens on that. That's why I'm optimistic, because we got a lot of parts. O-line, I trust how they're managed. I think they're the best coach position on the team. And so as long as he's got enough bodies, we'll be fine. As long as we threaten to run the ball down your throat, give our big guys a chance to be big. What the hell are we wasting 330 for if you don't let them do their thing? I don't want my guys backing up. I want them charging forward. See, and then we get the option to do whatever the hell we want to do. I'm a play action guy. I think because that's what defenses hate. They want to know what you're doing. I want you to never know what we're doing, to be able to do those things. This kid's got some mobility, but it's all about pocket presence. I love watching Baltimore play, but I love watching Buffalo play. But both guys are one hit away from being done.
Yeah.
You know, that running thing is overrated. The best guy in the game is in his mid-40s, and he couldn't outrun us. Okay? It's overrated. I need a guy that knows who to throw to, when to throw to him, and gets the ball out of his hand. So that's why I'm excited. You know, schedule favors us as long as we don't get a big head. Jacksonville looks at this as a W. Detroit will look at us as a W. Our fan base is ridiculous because they're thinking, oh, no, you don't have anything. Right. We got to go out and prove it.
Right.
And that's why I think if you got a chance to, we got to win in September. That'll build momentum. That'll fill that place up. And then all the promotional things they have, I'm all for all that, but it don't mean squat if we're not winning on the scoreboard.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the right mentality to have. I think that was probably instilled in you a little bit from a certain coach who I think is the greatest coach of all time, Joe Gibbs. I mean, I don't even think you can really argue it with other fans. They tried to, but I mean, three Super Bowls with three different quarterbacks. It clearly wasn't a quarterback or a player that led him to victory. It was Coach Gibbs. So do you see any parallels between Joe Gibbs and Ron Rivera?
No, not yet. But don't forget Richie Pettibone. And don't forget Wayne Sevier.
Right.
We had three aces.
Yeah.
Bobby Beathard, fourth ace. We had a pro owner who understood how to own franchises and Jack can cook. It's not fair to compare because, he won with the Lakers. He was in horse racing and was successful. You have to learn. Just because you have money doesn't mean you understand how to run pro franchises. Yeah. It's a whole different ball game. And so everybody's rich. That doesn't mean anything.
Right.
This is about, can you judge talent? Can you motivate people? And much like the Miami Heat, which I adore, they develop talent.
Yeah.
If you got to have LeBron to win, well, there's only one of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you got to be able to build around. And that, what if I don't have that? That's what the Miami Heat represent every stinking year. They develop talent, they build talent, and they're always in the hunt. I'm not saying we got to go to the Super Bowl, but we have to be in the playoffs. We have to be knocking on the door. Right now, they can't hear us. We're in the back room. We're in the basement.
Right.
We got to get back on the front level and start knocking on the door.
My man, that's exactly what I want to hear. But you just brought up developing talent, Coach. I want to get your opinion on John Bates. Let's say Logan Thomas doesn't start out the year starting. He still needs a little bit of time. Do you think John Bates is going to be perfect for that number one tight end role?
He can get the job done. And he don't have to do it all on his own. These young kids they brought in are ferocious. They look great. I just got to see them in pads.
Yeah.
I don't evaluate anybody in lingerie. This game is played in full metal jacket. And if you're not suited up and it's not live and you don't know you can get your head knocked off, I don't count.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, the Washington Commanders picked up the fifth-year option for Montez Sweat. Obviously, they traded for Montez Sweat to go back in the first round to take him in the late first round a couple years ago. With Montez Sweat, do you think that he is somebody who's poised for a breakout year? Washington's going to need it if Chase Young's not ready to start the season.
I think Montez Sweat has the highest upside of anybody on their entire team. He's ferocious. Yeah. He could be whatever he decides to be because he's got everything. And now, but it's working in concert of the defense. That unit has got to be a force of 4 or 5, not just one guy. Because in this league, we've seen this. We played Tampa in the playoffs. They didn't double anybody. The key in this game is that can you command a double team? Now that takes off the equation. Now we got an advantage with our line. I mean, guys that come in this league like Lawrence Taylor and Randy White and all those guys, nobody even thought about it. You got to double. You look at the Rams. You play the Rams, you're game planning one guy in the middle, and he's beating everybody.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy I want to see. People want money. What John Allen did, he elevated his game to Pro Bowl status. He elevated his game. He said, enough is enough of this. And he blew through the deal. Well, that's what we need to see now with Payne. Not about talking about it. It's about being about it. See, we need you to elevate. And if you do that, now we're cooking. I like the group, but I'm not into one-man bands. And you can't beat people because of what you did in college.
Right.
Okay, college is a different sport. This is a pro game. Nobody give a damn. Anybody lose no sleep over playing us.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to get people to have nightmares when they play it.
Right.
And so I think both these kids are immensely talented. I don't judge guys that are injured, but when Chase gets back, I trust Chase that he's smart enough to realize that he can't do it off athleticism.
Right.
It's got to be a technique-based guy who follows the rules and regulations of the defense. They have to win as a unit, not as individuals. And if they can buy into that and care enough about their teammates, then they'll do it. Don't mean you have to make every play, but you got to absorb 2 guys. You're a badass when you absorb 2 guys. If a guy's single blocking you the whole game, you're just a pro guy.
Right.
Absolutely, Doc. Now, my last question for you. Warren Sapp was here last week for minicamp. What did you think of Warren Sapp coming in and kind of coaching up that defensive front like he talked about?
Well, I love Warren. He's one of my favorite players. I covered him in college, in the pros, obviously, and he is reckless. What he did, what he's talking about is what he did. And he'll tell you he had to develop moves. He had to develop things. And once he developed things and how he was coached, then he blossomed. And he also had some dogs next to him. It wasn't just Warren alone. They had a pack of wild animals. That's why I'm saying units. I don't want to talk about individuals. I want to talk about units. The defensive line is one person to me. It's a unit. And they got to buy into that. And once they buy into that, the fearsome foursome had Deacon Jones. They also had Lundy. Okay, they weren't alone. Them 2 guys in the pit were unbelievable. It's a unit. And our fan base has got to understand, stop building statues for individuals. Praise units. Our special teams used to be the most feared group in football.
Yeah.
We got to get back to that. We win on teams. We take away field position. We out-punt. We got the best punter in the league. Okay, we got to get guys to cover. Now we get a return guy because we've been void of return. We used to be the best in the world at returning kicks. We got 2 guys, Nelms, Mitchell. We got guys that are legendary. But it was the units that also, they were great, but they also had great units in front of them. It was Gibbs, it was number 1 with us, special teams. Everybody played on teams. So this is the culture thing that all I know is it's got to be done as a group. All this individual stuff, it means nothing to me. Right. I'm looking for team unity so that they understand that you love the teammates and they love their families, and go out and prove it. Go out and prove it. If one guy is blocking you and you're a first-round pick, to me, you're ordinary.
Right. Doc, how much is it going to cost to get you to come in and be the GM? We need you talking to this team before every game.
It's not my role. Not my role. I'm doing a podcast, right. And I'm just a fan of it. They know exactly what they need to do.
Right.
It's just getting it done, getting the results of it. And I think it's close. Look, we lost our first 5 games under Coach Gibbs, and then once we got going, we finished 8 out of 11, then 12-1 and 14-2. You got to get the momentum going. And this is the season. It's no more excuses. There's no more talk that's needed. I don't want to hear anything. I don't listen to press. I don't listen to any of that. Their production will be proven on game day. That's what I want to see. They got a staff that's experienced. They got former players. They got everything. but now we got to get results for it. This is not a political campaign. This is show and tell.
My man, I absolutely love talking to you, Rick. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining in with us with Rick Doc Walker. You can find him on Patreon with your podcast, right, sir?
Absolutely, man. And we're getting things rolling, and it's just fun. It's not for everybody. Thank God. I mean, you know, you got to be able to. You got to come up here and get blood. You know, all our people, you know, they got to slip themselves. We got to match your blood, and then you in. Because clearly we got so many different initiatives going out here. People rooting for stadiums. I don't give a damn if they play in the parking lot. Right. I don't care where they play. I care about how they play.
My man.
I don't care about no promotion. The only promotion I need is that we won. That's all I need. And I need that band. The band is back. The band is back. I think we're all making the conversion now that we are Commanders. Yep. And I'm ready to roll with it. I mean, you know, we just got to deal with it. It is what it is. And if we all are moving in the right direction, I'm embarrassed by some of the whiners in our fan base.
I know.
The Cleveland Browns haven't won since '65.
Thank you.
And they're top 5 in the world in fan base. The Buffalo Bills lost 4 Super Bowls. They're top 5 in the world in terms of support. The Mafia, second to none. The Packers have to deal with their element. They travel. That's what I'm talking about. Let's quit faking ourselves.
Thank you.
We're not what we once were, but we can do it again if we rally together. And we have to be focused on it. Stop whining about the stadium's too far. I went to Baltimore to see the Orioles when I got here. No problem. Right. Okay? If our stadium was in Baltimore, so what? I'd go and support our team. We got a bunch of whiners right now, and they don't understand what it's all about. And I'm here to tell you that we have got to take an action to support these guys so they can win.
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. You are the man. That was absolutely perfect. Sir, I can't thank you enough. I hope you go enjoy your Friday and go enjoy Top Gun.
Yeah, I got to check Top Gun out, man. I like it. I watched the other one a couple weeks ago just to refresh myself, and I'm going to go check out Maverick.
Yeah, let us know what you think of it, Rick. Thank you so much, Doc.
All right, good deal, man. Always a pleasure.
All right,
Always
Doc, thank you.
Good deal, man.
Wakanda forever, brother. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Rick Doc Walker. It's a fresh breath of air every time talking to him.
I know, especially because we don't even need to say anything. Doc can just go, and Doc will hit on every single point. It doesn't matter because the guy is so passionate about this football team.
Yeah, and speaking of being passionate about a football team, did you see Johannsen wrote a letter to the fan base today, and the Washington Commanders released it out like a player's tribute is what it was called, and I absolutely loved it. Just talking about his draft night, basically educating the fan base on who Johannsen is. And the one quote I loved, I took away from it, was he said he was always looking ahead. And that's why I wanted to title this episode "Always Looking Ahead," because I think that that's something like Doc Walker was saying is, we're not what we were, but we can definitely get back to it. And looking ahead can definitely do that and help with that process. But now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Ken Johannsen of Riggos Rag. How are you doing on this Friday, Ken?
My other best friend, right next to Logan Paulson.
Or is your sound not up yet? I can't see it.
Sound?
It'll be here soon. It'll be here soon. But I really like that about Jahan, that he's open about it, like letting us know what he feels about the organization, wants the fan base to know he's going to fight hard for everybody here. And I think that's really, really freaking cool, man.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's awesome. A lot of the things that the Washington social team stuff is doing is really interesting and different. And I think it's going to end up really cool because it's a completely new day. Like, a lot of fans didn't take the name change well, and they didn't feel like connect with the franchise anymore. I think stuff like this is really only going to help the fans connect with this new Commander's name.
Yeah, absolutely. And him being the first Commander's draft pick, right? And so what about now, Ken? Are you good? I can't hear you still. Oh, man. What's going on with your microphone? That sucks. But while you work on that, let's start answering our fan questions. I'm going to go to the Colonel's question here first that he sent to us in a text message. Reed, I'm going to go to you first. Is it a slow news day, or do you put any faith in recent comments by Carson Wentz declaring that he and Curtis Samuel are building some great chemistry? As I recall, Samuel has been pretty limited. Do you have any further insight?
I think it's always a slow news week this time of year. But hey, that's something that you do love to hear. I do think that Carson's developing very good chemistry with Curtis Samuel. I mean, you guys saw him when he went to camp, when he went to OTAs, and he looked very good, right?
Yeah.
You guys said that he looked very sharp, so
He looked
I'm
explosive.
excited for it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that. Go ahead.
I read the article illustrating all about this. I think I read it in NBC Sports or CBS Sports, and talking about Curtis Samuel, Carson Wentz, and just saying how he's electric with the ball in his hands. And yes, he was limited last season and due to his injury, and he wasn't very productive. But I feel like I've talked about this before with Curtis Samuel, where him not being here last year is like his production this year makes it a cherry on top, because you're not expecting much from him. And given with Johannsen being here, it's only a great thing for Commanders fans getting Curtis Samuel back. And if Carson Wentz is telling you that Curtis Samuel is looking really good and he's basically the option here beside Johannsen, because we've seen Johannsen blow up in OTAs and minicamp, and like Doc Walker said, don't put much into it, right? Because there's not much hitting going on. But that being said, Diami Brown was blowing up, and Johannsen was looking really good, but he still brought up Curtis Samuel. And what does that say? I think that says a lot about Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean,
I might be here now.
there you are.
There you are.
There you go.
How you doing,
Yeah.
Ken?
Hey, it's good to be with you guys. Kyle, I like the background scene you have in your house there. Or is that the real thing?
That's
It's the real thing.
Yeah. I can't decide if Kyle's homeless living on the beach or if that's just he has a mansion now. I think he has
I
a
like it.
mansion.
I like it.
Yeah,
No,
this is the new setup from now on. No,
Right,
of
yeah.
course not. But Ken, I wanted to get your opinion before we get to like fan questions and we recap each of it. I wanted to ask you about the hearing with Roger Goodell, because I was obviously out here on vacation, so I don't really know all that much that goes into it. Can you kind of explain what happened at the hearing? Is there anything substantial coming away from it?
Well, I think you had two approaches. You had the Republicans had an agenda and the Democrats had an agenda. And basically the Democrats were coming at the angle of, Dan Snyder is a poor owner. He shouldn't be running the team. He shouldn't own the team. He should be forced to sell. Whereas the Republicans were, coming from the angle, hey, this is all political. This is, there's nothing to be gained here. And that's basically what it boiled down to. And it was a microcosm of what's going on in our country right now, one side against the other. And it was really unfortunate. I don't think we found out anything new in the meetings, except for about 3 or 4 things that Dan Snyder did that were, not too
Not something you would want a friend to do to you.
Yeah,
Like they pouring this sour milk in a Fred Lerner suite.
Did some childish things.
That's awesome.
Which to me kind of speaks to what we already knew about him.
Right.
But that was about it.
I completely agree. It's fun. Some of the things that came out, it's some that I almost think it would be funny if it came out that Snyder, he didn't really do anything wrong, but he just did annoying stuff like that, like dumped milk in an office and then let it sour like that, or took all the lost and found jackets and stuffed them all with mothballs or something. So when people came and picked them up, they just smelled weird. And it was he's just oddly infuriating, just mildly infuriating,
Yeah, that's basically what it was. It was unfortunate that, this stuff came out. It's unfortunate that it happened as well. But I remember back to when I was a teenager, young adult, I did a few things that I look back on now and I'm not too proud of.
I don't believe that for a second, Ken.
Well,
Ken, you're an angel. You would
Yeah.
never do anything
no.
bad.
Well, maybe nowadays if I'm lucky. That's only because I really can't get out anymore. But yeah, we've all done stuff like that.
Not
and
me, but
but he's doing it though as the team owner of a professional sports franchise,
$1 billion,
one of the most recognized teams in the world, and that's not good.
No,
That's not good at all.
No, it's not. But let's go over our fan questions now. We have a second question submitted by the Colonel. Ken, I want to start this with you because you have the angle, the aspect that we don't. Obviously, being around for so long, knowing this team back when they were the Redskins, their prime days, their glory days, right? Well, his question is, gents, would like to acknowledge the passing of Brig Owens, obviously rest in peace, a Washington safety in the early 70s mainly. He was a Sean Taylor of that time, yes sir. His question is the Washington Redskins legacy dead with the new rebranding? Players like Owens, Darrell Green, and Sean Taylor, are they forgotten? How often do you hear about the Houston Oilers, St. Louis Cardinals, Baltimore Colts? Unlike those teams, Washington won 3 Super Bowls and 5 appearances. Don't you feel like we're like a quasi-expansion team? Is the organization doing enough to keep legacy with the Redskins fans?
I think the Colonel asked a very good question. And yes, I'm an older fan. I remember Brig Owens and Sonny Jurgensen, Jerry Smith, Bobby Mitchell, all these guys. I was able to see them play. And Brig Owens, yes, he was the Sean Taylor of his day. Not as good as Sean Taylor, admittedly, but he was very, very good. And I enjoyed watching him play. He had like 10 or 12 years with the former Redskins. And I hated to hear this news, but I don't think we'll forget these guys. But, with each passing generation, you don't know much about the past like those who got to experience it. My father said, I got to see Sammy Ball play. I got to see Cliff Battles play. He was really young, though. He says, my father took me to see these games. And you'll never know about these guys. You hear about them, but you never got to see them play. And that's the same thing now. And in 2 or 3 generations, after we're all gone, these players will just be footnotes on the internet, on a piece of paper or whatever. And that's about it. It happens. The natural progression of time does happen. And there's not much that we can do about it.
Real fast, Kyle. I'm just gonna cut in I wonder what the perception of like clearly the generation like you talked about 2-3 generations from now isn't gonna have as much of an attachment to like say Sean Taylor as we do. So I mean, it's just crazy to think about what that's gonna be like.
Absolutely right about that. I understand the question, Colonel. It is the natural progression, right? Because it's not like Packers fans are still memorializing Bart Starr and stuff like that. They've had Brett Favre, they've had Aaron Rodgers, so obviously it's not something that they bring back. But I understand your question: is Washington doing enough to embrace that legacy with fans? And I think that they are. They've been trying heavily in order to bridge the old with the new. They because it's a tricky situation. Because you're trying to separate the two. You're trying to say this is what we used to be, and yes, that we had glory days, but obviously it ended in a very poor manner. So that's what they're trying to separate from without losing that legacy, and that's a very hard bridge to build because they're always going to be connected and intermingled. But I think they've done it in a great way with adding the 3 stars, using the championship years. Even though you guys want to complain about the years being wrong, who cares? I mean, personally, I do not care. But the fact is, they show that, and that's what the connection is still there. But this is why I said about with Rigo. When he came out first and said that he wasn't going to acknowledge the Commanders, he wasn't going to have that relationship. And I'm like, okay, well, you better be ready to be forgotten, because the players, you being present here to educate us, is what's really going to bridge and help the younger fan base understand what was built here before they kind of realize. And that's what my whole thing is, where the players more so are at the will of the fans to keep that legacy more so than the organization, I feel. And obviously there's a relationship between the players and organization where they have that ability, that stage to be able to talk to the fan base. And I think that's very easy. I think Washington would be welcoming anybody from the old legacy to be brought here. But that's basically my point in all, is that it's a multi-level relationship, but ultimately it comes down to players being good, have a good relationship with the organization. Do you have anything to add, Reed?
Like you guys said, I do think that they're doing a good job. They're trying really hard. And if you think about it, when you think back to some of those 80s teams, people like Doc Walker, they're always going to be big names with our fan base because they're still around. They're still doing stuff. So I mean, you're seeing that with Santana Moss, Landon Fletcher, those guys, they'll be around for a little while. But it is going to be interesting. I mean, it's a new day, unfortunately. It's all things come to an end, and hopefully we can respect the past as much as possible with building something new. I think they're doing a good job.
And hopefully we are able to build a future that is similar to the legacy that was here before, and it makes everything a lot easier. And that question will become naturally irrelevant, you could say, or obsolete after time. But our next question is from Mike Puckett, who texted me this. Reed, I'm going to start with you first. What team on the schedule is everyone saying is an easy win for Washington, but could give us the toughest matchup and the harder than we think?
Okay, so I have two of them, but I'll just go with one. And it's the first two games of the season. I really think that Detroit and Jacksonville have improved a lot. I'm going to go with week one. I just think so many Commanders fans are writing this off as an easy W, and I don't think it's going to be. I think that Trevor Lawrence, if you go back and watch his tape last year, I know that his stats weren't the best, but if you go watch some of the throws he made, some of the plays that he made, he did some incredible things, and you could see it's there. And getting a coach like Doug Peterson and surrounding him, building up the offensive line, going out and getting some more wide receivers, doing some stuff to the defense, of course, Trayvon Walker and what's his face, the kid from Utah, linebacker. Devin Lloyd. I really, really like what they did. They get Travis Etienne back. I think that Jacksonville is going to be better than people think, and while I do think we will win the week one, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk like most people are thinking, because teams had the first pick the last 2 years,
I do
Jaguars.
think, yeah, for me, Puckett, I think it's the Giants. And I know it's crazy to say that, but the reason being is Daniel Jones, for some reason, just plays incredible against Washington.
Daniel Mahomes.
Yeah, it's really weird how he does that against Washington and nobody else. Like, remember that 60-yard run he had on us. I'll never forget that moment. But on top of that, Joe Judge coming from Buffalo, where obviously the coaching staff and Scott McDermott coming from Ron Rivera, knowing kind of what Ron Rivera
Not Joe
does.
Judge, by the way.
Not Joe Judge. I'm sorry, Brian Dable. Brian Dable coming from Scott Peterman. Scott Peterman. Oh my goodness. Scott Peterman, that ridiculous. South Park. But basically
Scott Tenorman. You're getting everything wrong.
Is that Brian Dable has the MO basically of what Washington's defense would like to do, right? Because what Sean McDermott does up there. And so he kind of has the blueprint for it. I feel like that could be one of those matchups where it's sneaky. We think it's an easy matchup, but they actually are very similar in teams, and it's going to be a lot tougher than we imagine. What about you, Ken?
Are the Bears on the schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. That's a sneaky good team. They have a good young quarterback, and they could surprise a few teams this year. I think they're going to struggle in NFC North because you've got obviously the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. The Vikings, I think, are improved, especially in the coaching department. The Lions are, they're improved. But I think the Bears are a team, they're kind of tough on both sides of the ball. And I think they could give a good 4 quarters of solid football against Washington.
Right.
And that's a game that could come down to the final few plays. And whoever makes a mistake or the play at the end is probably win that game.
Especially, that's a primetime game in Chicago.
Yeah, it is, exactly.
Right.
And over the years, Washington has struggled in prime time, but the last couple of years they've improved.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a good game there.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I understand that Washington hasn't done anything to garner the respect, but I saw that your colleague Jerry Trotter from Riggos Rag posted an article about the Super Bowl odds, and Washington's Super Bowl odds were the same as the Chicago Bears. And look, I understand they haven't proven anything; that's where they should be. But just looking at it from a football perspective, I find that honestly ridiculous that their win bet is looking at Washington the same odds as the Chicago Bears. I think that Washington is at least a step above them, and I know obviously they haven't done enough to where that is the case. I'm just saying that blew my mind. But our next question is from Jeff Miles in the Discord chat server. Ken, what would you like to see as a mascot for the Washington Commanders? He's tired of the German Shepherd idea. He's sad to say, but let's hear from the backlash from the Eagles, the underdog. So what would you like to see as a mascot?
Well, I know that there are a lot of people who would like to see hogs. Do we go with a human mascot? Because we had an unofficial mascot for many years with Chief Z.
Yeah.
And he was good. And everybody loved him. So could we go with some sort of human mascot? I don't know what that would be, but I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't know who it would be. I think someone like Chris Bryant would gladly stand up and do that.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, obviously it could be anything. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's a hog. That's part of the legacy, and I think that would be a good one.
Yeah, I've heard the hog one before, and I do think that's obviously the smartest and easiest, especially for Jeff. I think he's right now coming up with ideas for his drawing for FedEx Field, because obviously he won the ability to send in his artwork to be able to be approved to be used at FedEx Field. And I understand the German Shepherd idea. I understand the hogs. I get the connection to the past and everything. But I've said it before, I would like to see them use like generals of different armed forces branches as the mascots, not like literal, obviously, generals of them, but essentially like the presidential races that the Nats have, stuff like that. And so it can be easier for the younger fan base. They can get into it, having just something to do at the stadium, something to watch, just something cool to do, not a race or anything like that. But I could see like a push-up challenge, pull-up challenge, stuff like that with the generals and these like kind of mascot costumes.
Yeah, my idea that I was thinking that I was heading toward was someone, 3 or 4 people on Twitter have come up with this thing called the Commandalorian. I really like that.
Right. Yeah.
And I would love it if the team did that. That would bring in the human element, and then dressed in that with the colors. Yeah, I like that. But I like the military theme as well.
Yeah, I like all of those. I think that if we really want to see somebody's head explode, then you got to make it like an Indian, a Native American with military ties, like Geronimo or something, That way it ties the Redskins with the Commanders.
You're
and
ridiculous.
You just watch heads explode.
Now, our next question, it was submitted through Twitter by our guy Steve Andy 42. He says it's not Washington related, but how would you feel, Ken, how do you feel about Ohio State trademarking the word "the"? Is this laughable, or is it another example of their big fish status?
Well, I graduated from a school that calls themselves the university in the state of Virginia, the University of Virginia. Now, they don't do it officially. Give me a break. Anyway, they don't do it officially, but it's something they've always tried to hold over Virginia Tech. And, I don't care one way or the other. But if a school wants to do that, let them. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. There are several schools that do that. I think Texas may do that. Ohio State does do that unofficially. I think Washington does that because they want to annoy a Washington State out in the Pacific Northwest there. So it's kind of a in-your-face type of thing, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I get it with Ohio State. Obviously, that's their thing. I'm not sure how we could absorb it in any way. Like, obviously, we could have done it last year with the Washington football team, but I don't think it would correlate to the Commanders. But I appreciate the question, Steve. Now, the next question that we have is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! And Ken, he wants to know, all directions point to training camp. And with that, who is your surprise bubble player that you think gets kept on the roster, not practice squad?
Ooh, a bubble player. I'm going to go with someone that Mike Reed's best friend and good buddy, Logan Paulson, talks about. And that's Curtis Hodges, the undrafted free agent out of Arizona State. The more and more I hear about him, you look at his size, his skill set and everything, I think he could be there, especially if Logan Thomas starts the season on the PUP list, whether it be for 3 or 6 weeks. And they're going to need that extra player. So I'm looking at Hodges as someone who could be there. Now, the running backs, I'm giving Jonathan Williams the edge to make it as the 4th running back.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I was going to say Jarrett Patterson, given his special teams ability and kick and punt returning. Obviously, with kick returns, he was easy with that. He's comfortable with it. I think the special teams ability gives him that notch, Scott. And so I could see Jarrett Patterson being the bubble player that it makes the active roster that is not kept on the practice squad. I think Jarrett Patterson did enough in his time last season when he was given the number 1 running back duties. He did a good job with it. I feel like that's somebody that has earned the spot on the active roster. Well, what about you, Reed? What is one bubble player that you could see making the active roster and not the practice squad?
I brought it up, I believe on Monday. I think Alex Erickson, the wide receiver that they signed. He's somebody who's under the radar, but it's almost similar to DeAndre Carter. DeAndre Carter was last year as well, but his return abilities really would help keep him on the team, and they found a spot for him. I could see Erickson. I mean, he's with the Bengals and the Titans. He's been a return man. He's been a successful returner. So I think maybe as a punt returner, maybe as a kick returner, maybe they don't feel that they have any pure punt returner, and they could bring him on and keep him. They could use him, maybe gadget plays on the offense. I don't know. That's also because Ken took my favorite one, which is Hodges. So,
everybody loves Hodges because we got to jump on Logan Paulson's back, right? We have to. But this last question, this last question we have is from Commander Canada on Twitter. What is going on with Landon Collins, Reed, and does he have a shot to be back here?
No, I texted Landon yesterday. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be cool though. No, I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. I've seen a couple of things say that Anthony Barr is somebody to keep an eye on once training camp starts, if he's still available. That's something that Washington is interested in, and I would be all for that. Landon Collins, unfortunately, I have no idea what's going on with. I haven't really heard much, but he's somebody who I think we would all welcome back on the right deal for sure. I mean, look at the way that he played last season as soon as he started getting his feet under him in the Buffalo. So yeah, I don't know. I wish I had more insight on that, but he won't return my DMs. So
he won't return my DMs. Yeah, we'd have to ask Jordan Assery what's going on with Landon Collins. But obviously that door is still open. Washington, for the right price, would welcome back Landon Collins without a doubt. But obviously it's not like his market is essentially heating up. I know the Houston Texans have talked about acquiring him for their Buffalo nickel role, and he would obviously help this defense. He would. I know that obviously him not going to a team right now is indicative of what the NFL feels about Landon Collins. But that being said, he would be a positive and productive asset here. We saw it last season. I think he could come back, but it's all based on the price. I would welcome Landon Collins back with open arms, but it's all based on Landon, how much he's been willing to pay. And it sucks that you have to say that about a player because you want him to be able to get as much money as he can. But unfortunately, the position that Washington is in right now, they have to be penny pinchers. And so hopefully Landon Collins abides by that and comes back. Otherwise, we're going to be looking to kick the tires without him. What about you, Ken? Have you heard anything new on Landon Collins?
I heard the same thing that Mike was talking about Anthony Barr. I've seen that in a couple of places. It's been mentioned that there's possible interest. I think if they're going, for a player like Barr or bringing Collins back, they could be waiting to see what's on the waiver wire this summer.
Yeah.
When after training camp is finished with most teams, you start to see players released. We don't know who's going to be on that list. So I think they'll be looking in that direction too. I think the situation with Landon Collins, if I had to guess, you look back in May, I think the team still wanted him to come back. But it seems like with each passing week, that door is starting to close a little bit more each and every week. So I'm not holding out much hope that he returns, but I don't think the door is entirely closed, but it feels like it's narrowing.
I definitely feel like Landon Collins fits the bill of what Ron Rivera said in his press conference last week, saying that if they were going to acquire any of these veteran free agents, they were going to be able to come in and pick up right where they left. Like, they were going to be able to pick up the game plan and everything very, very quickly, and Landon Collins would absolutely fit that bill. But with Anthony Barr, that doesn't make sense to me, Ken. Just because, they've talked about speed. If you're looking for an Anthony Barr type guy who obviously has versatility being as an edge rusher, possibly outside linebacker, but also being an inside linebacker with depth, wouldn't you just re-sign John Bostic?
I think Bostic is pretty much through. I think he showed that last year. I hate to say that because for the two previous seasons, he was a warrior for this team.
He was.
He gave it all he had. And eventually players hit that wall, and that's it. And I think that's it with him. But who knows? He could still return. I think with Anthony Barr, he could be what John Bostic was about 3 years ago. A good, solid acquisition, gives you a couple of good years. But beyond that, I don't think it'll be much. I think he's pretty good in coverage still. Like you said, a good edge rusher and someone that can man that middle pretty well. But he would be basically a depth signing because I think Cole Holcomb, is going to be the inside linebacker and the starter. So I don't know if Barr would want to, be a backup. I think he would still be looking for a starter's role, but none may be out there. So that's why Washington could be interested.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. I get it. Cole Holcomb obviously just got married over the week this week. So congratulations to Cole.
Can't
Holcomb.
wait to see those wedding photos with that mullet.
Dude, it's
You know?
absolutely beautiful. I saw Washington Commanders retweeted it and showed the wedding picture, and it was absolutely awesome, dude. Cole Holcomb's a man. The fact that he didn't cut the mullet for his wedding just shows that he's got it. He's got the alpha in him.
Yeah, either that or he didn't take nothing from his wife. I bet he's like, I'm keeping it. She was like, okay, yes sir.
Yes
It's
sir.
like, Jesus. Cole.
All right, everybody, that's gonna wrap us up for this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hall wasn't with us today because Hall's on vacation, so hopefully he's able to have a good, solid weekend. Because dude, he works his butt off in the warehouse there at our job. But Ken, I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. Glad to hear that you've been pain-free for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that, and hopefully you've been doing well, and we can continue that streak, sir.
Well, yesterday marked 4 weeks of pain-free. They think my situation has improved to the point where this may last for several more months. Pain will return here and there. That's a given. But it sounds like we've defeated this for at least a few years. Now, yesterday I had a driving test to see how I would do. I failed it. The driving was fine, but getting in and out of the vehicle was a problem for me.
Right.
It hurt. So they technically didn't pass me, but they think by mid-July everything will be fine.
We're good.
So you're all there.
That's where I'm
basically.
at.
Yeah. Ken, I'll come pick you up.
Yeah, that's
I'll be
good.
a chauffeur.
And make sure you have a couple of football tickets for the opening game, and I'll ride down with you.
I wouldn't do anything different.
Absolutely. We'd get hammered, Ken. We'd have a great time,
Mhm.
sir. All right, everybody.
That's
gonna
Top Gun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this show. Before we get out of here, Ken, you just want to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching wants to come follow you.
Yeah, Ken Johannsen. That's at Burgundy Burner on Twitter. You can find me at Riggos Reg, just Ken Johannsen with 2 N's. I have a series that I had to put on hold for about 4 weeks because I was doing a special project for a company that I used to own but bought out by someone else. And they asked me to do some work over these last 4 weeks, so I did. But I'm back with a new article this coming week, and we're going to have continue the summer series with all the players on the team, and also roster predictions, things like that, and look at training camp and the preseason. So that's starting next week at Riggos Reg, so be sure to go there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is one of those
There you
contracts that Ken can't really talk about. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this show. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Vladimir Putin.
Why do you do that?
And I'm Ken, out here in hot Memphis, sending you the warm weather.
Hot old Memphis,
Absolutely.
Tennessee. It's Vladimir.
Yes.
And the next time you guys see me, I'll be back home. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this night and this vacation. We leave tomorrow morning. So we'll see you guys again on Monday. Make sure you check us out. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football.